The journey continues.
Play the theme music. Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. I'm Alan and I'm here with the ever interrogative Adam.
Why are you calling me interrogative?
I got some questions for you, man. I've been feeling a little bit introspective. Let me tell you for why.
Go on.
We've just gone on a little sojourn, haven't we, you and I, to a waterfall where we polar plunged right there underneath the flowing water.
Yeah, you forget how good waterfalls are, really, don't you, when you haven't been in one for a while?
You often forget it. Yeah, I spend 99% of my time forgetting the feeling of being under a waterfall because it's dopamine that lasts throughout the day.
Yeah, I did feel much better mood-wise after taking the plunge. You led the way, didn't you? It was treacherous to get there.
Right proper climb over rocks and through bracken and into the waterfall. It was really beautiful. It was very, very cold. I went straight in. Sometimes I think, in life in general, but also with the polar plunge, best just to head straight for it. Don't dilly-dally, waiting for your skin to go all shriveled. You got to just get straight in there.
Do you remember just before we left when you had flip-flops on?
Yeah.
And you were contemplating doing the whole way in your flip-flops?
Yeah, and I was persuaded not to.
Yeah, now given the terrain that you've just experienced, are you glad you wore normal shoes?
No, I was regretful for not having the flip-flops, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think I would have been fine in the flips.
You could have brought them with you and then basically worn them into the pool because it was pretty rocky and quite dangerous. I mean, yeah, I didn't feel too comfortable going in, but you were already in by the time I wanted to get in, and I was not going to let you have that over me.
Have my flip-flops been a bone of contention for you on this trip, or are you happy with them in general?
No, we haven't spoken about them before, have we? But they've been broken for 2 months.
Yeah.
Like, they have been broken for 2 months. So how would you describe the flip-flops themselves? I mean, they're the ones that go through your toes, like the Havaianas or whatever they're called, and your little bit that goes through like the underside or whatever, it just pops out all the time.
They've got the quintessential flip-flop problem that all travellers know about. It's the only way that a flip-flop ever breaks,
right?
Which is where the little plug that goes through between the toes has come out and then the hole is widened. So constantly the flip-flop's just, that bit's coming undone, basically.
Have you thought about changing the way you walk?
The problem is, once it's happened, that is the point where most people would replace the flip-flops. So you've said to me, please buy a new pair of flip-flops. Other people have said to me, can I buy you a new pair of flip-flops? I, unfortunately, have taken to regularly taping up the underside of the flip-flop.
Yeah, you become an absolute technician in flip-flop repairs.
Yeah, we were waiting for dinner last night and I was just taping a flop.
Yeah, so what we're saying, guys, basically is we're trying to buy flip-flops for Alan on the company account, and if you could contribute to that, it'd be amazing.
I don't like buying new things. I like to make the things that I have work for an extended period of time. I was already bothered by those flip-flops because, as we talked about in previous episodes, my good pair of flip-flops was stolen outside an open mic night by some hippies in Goa.
Yeah.
So already there's sort of a grudge towards the flip-flops, and I think I'll be damned if I'm going to spend any more money on them.
I know, and unlike me, you didn't get given a pair of awesome flip-flops by a lovely lady from the US who had bought them from Egypt, I believe. And then someone stole one of those in the hostel we were in Mumbai, and I'd rather they'd taken both.
Oh, really?
To be, well,
so
yeah.
Give you an excuse to repurchase something better?
Yeah, it's just annoying, isn't it? Why take one flip-flop?
I know, yeah. Why take one flip-flop? Why take one of anything when you've got the perfect opportunity to take two?
Couldn't you have given me your good one?
Yeah, exactly.
That
Yeah, because I had a good right one. Anyway, listen, this is a lot of flip-flop chat early on in the show, but I called you interrogative. I've been feeling introspective, and I think I've been giving the listening audience quite an easy ride the last few weeks. We've talked about our adventures. We've talked about kind of what we've been doing, what we've been up to, how we've been traveling together. But first and foremost, when people say to me, what do you want to do with Tripology? What do you want to happen? I want people to have a look at the way they live their lives. I want to inspire people who want to travel, and I want to inspire people who are traveling to continue traveling.
Cool, yeah.
These are aims that we both share.
Totally, yeah. It's really important to challenge yourself and your decisions on a regular basis, I think. Just make sure you're on the right path.
Because I've recently
with the right
realised
footwear.
Some people are listening to this show. They like thinking about travel, but they're actually just kind of not traveling. Some of them.
Yeah, I know. It's bound to happen, isn't it? Maybe they're just waiting in the wings for the right episode to come out, and maybe that episode is this one now.
Yeah, man, because originally we thought we're long-term travelers. We're going to speak directly to other long-term travelers. Now we're kind of talking to just people with an interest in travel, and that's cool too. But I thought what would be cool is to ask you a couple of questions about your experience of traveling that kind of highlights some of the coolest things about travel.
Yeah.
Maybe through that medium will inspire some people listening. Maybe they'll get a plane and go somewhere.
Yeah, okay, cool.
What do you think?
I'm ready for it.
It's going to be a little bit esoteric.
You catch me off guard, will you?
Yeah, I will catch you off guard, Adam, because I do admire you as a traveller. You're a very different type of traveller to me. But both of us have been travelling a long time. I think maybe we'll shed some light. So on an esoteric level, I suppose what I really want to know is, you've been travelling. How do you think, on a fundamental level, how has that changed you? I want to know, if you travel back through time and were able to talk to you prior to travelling, what would the biggest difference between you and that person be? And what would you say to them?
Probably something along the lines of relationship building skills.
Right.
I would say. I think as you travel, you obviously meet a wide range of people that speak many different languages, come from many different cultures, and being able to connect and break bread with these people is a skill that you develop on the road, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say to my former self, lean into that ability and enjoy it.
Is that something that you feel your former self wasn't adept at doing, and that you became more adept at doing it as you travelled?
No, I think the foundations were there, definitely. The line of work I was in, sort of, I needed that, or I excelled at that job because of my ability to build relationships. And then I think that travel has only sort of enhanced that, shall we say. I've leveled up, Alan.
Right, yeah, cool.
And I love that. I love that. And I think that's probably maybe a lesser known reason, or, sort of a focus, as it were. But I think it's an important thing to bear in mind. If you're someone who's not that sociable, or maybe you don't have any relationship building skills, naturally you're thrown into those environments where you're going to have to pull it out the bag.
Do you think the you back then would be proud of the you now? Do you think they'd be like, oh, that's so amazing that he went off and did all that stuff?
Because it gives you confidence as well, doesn't it? I think traveling in general.
Yeah,
I think it gives you a lot of confidence. And yeah, that's probably what I'll just put an arm around me and say, don't worry, mate. I know you're panicking a little bit, but everything's going to be great in the future.
Yeah. And you do think they'd be a fan of everything you've done?
Maybe not everything. I wish I'd done more. I wish I was more like you.
Right. Well, just in terms of the actual number of countries and breadth of the world.
Yeah, and what you've achieved. Like I would say back to you, if you could speak to your 21-year-old self and say, by the way, by the time you're 30, you're going to have done all of these things, like a long list of your travel CV, if you like, would even just the task of completing that would seem mammoth.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely wasn't something I expected. Because I think the important thing about that is my impetus for traveling was not necessarily the same as I think most people's. I think a lot of people, they want to go traveling because they're really curious about the world. They want to try a lot of new things. They really have an idea that they've seen a picture book of a place and they're like, I desperately want to go to that place, have a cultural tie. For me, I was just miserable.
Yeah, you just didn't like the place or the headspace you were in.
Yeah, I'd finished a degree in a subject that I had no interest in particularly using.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I just needed to take some time to take stock. And I ended up falling in love with travel. So I think it would be a real goddamn shock to the 20-year-old me if I was to turn up and be like, hey, here I am, this is what the last 10 years have looked like. If I was going to tell them something, though, I think it would just be that everything's going to work out okay. Don't worry so much about the future. I think I still do, but spent so much time thinking, oh, what about the next thing? How am I going to get money to do this? How am I going to, do I need to go home now? Can I carry on the trip? All that stuff. But I think if I'd lived in the present more, I'd probably have been a happier traveller from the off. Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I do look back on a lot of my trips and I think that in hindsight, I don't know how much I was enjoying it, unfortunately. And not all the time. There have been times very recently when I've taken stock and thought, you really got to make sure that you appreciate what it is you're doing here, because it's extraordinary. And it has been extraordinary the last 10 years for both of us. But there's certainly been times when I've been looking out the window of a train thinking, I'm not sure this is that fun anymore. And it's important to keep going. I don't know whether that signifies some sort of addiction.
Do you think it is important to keep you going? Or do you think it's more important just to persevere and carry on than it is to listen to your body and your mind and stop when you've had enough?
No, I think it is very important to stop when you've had enough, if that is what you suspect you need. Being sort of dialed in and in tune with your inner self and listening to your body and your mind, I think is definitely a skill that you develop over time. But I know that lots of travellers out there, people listening to this, I guess, will put that sort of that limit on their travels, whether it's 6 months or a year, or maybe it's just a work contract abroad or whatever.
Yeah.
But if it grabs you the way it's grabbed us, there's absolutely no harm going full power.
I reckon people put so much pressure on these trips. Like, maybe that's why it lasted so long for me. It's because there was no pressure. I went in with the mindset of just needing a break.
Yeah.
And then ended up just staying for 10 years and making it work consistently. And every time I could make it work, every time I got a job in a guitar shop in a different country and then got some cash and carried on, it just kept on working and I kept on sustaining it. But I know so many people, they're like waiting for travel to change their life fundamentally, and that is the aim of their travel. Their aim of the travel is not to take a break from the life they have, it's to revolutionize their existence. And there is an extent to which that became the case for me. I ended up wanting to just like destroy this like sense of self and become this new thing. But I think a lot of people expect travel to be the thing that changes them, and it can't be.
No.
It can't be. It's the experiences you have and the work you do on yourself, and travel is a great medium for that, don't get me wrong. But if you're effing miserable in your office, going traveling is just like, it's at best a plaster to put on that,
Yeah, you're never going to know the right way to do it. And I think it's quite an interesting point. If you think about what you've achieved over the last 9 years, if you had tried to achieve that in sort of a bucket list sense, I think there would almost be too much pressure on your trip and it wouldn't have gone that way. Maybe the fact that you've just been quote unquote making it up as you go along is the reason you've been able to continue for such a long time.
Yeah, well, when I started, I had no idea that I wanted to go overland across Africa, right? Not only did I have no idea that I wanted to do that, but I'd have also been incapable of doing that prior to having the experiences I had in Asia and Australia and stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So you can't know what you don't know. I didn't know it was possible to do that. I didn't know that I was able to do that. I fundamentally built up my tolerance to hardcore travel as time went on.
Yeah, we always say that kind of stuff. I mean, I look back on what I did as a young backpacker, if I can say that, and I think it wasn't that far away from a holiday, to be honest with you.
Right.
But now, as time goes on and you become a little bit more confident and you meet other people who inspire you to do crazy stuff, you have sorts of experiences that, maybe other travelers don't necessarily, and that's when the cool shit happens.
Sure, yeah. People bite off more than they can chew maybe early on, and they're best off just figuring out what kind of travel they like and what kind of adventure they want to do.
Yeah, every now and again you meet a traveller who's 19 years old and they've gone and lived in the desert for 3 months and you think, hang on a minute, where was I when that was happening at the age of 19?
Yeah, exactly. So we've obviously both grown up traveling. We were both like 21 when we started, right?
I was a bit older. I was 24.
24, right? So I have a big question for you. I just want to take stock, have a little meditate first, and we'll be back in a moment. Meditation break.
Excelente.
Yeah, back from the meditation break. The conscious mind returning to the brain as we ask ourselves, goodness me, on an interrogative level, what do we think about travel? I'm here with Adam, who is just one of the best travellers in the world. I really think so.
One of the best mates?
Yeah, my best friend and also a damn good traveller. And it seems a shame to talk about our travels all the time without really drilling down into the psychological details of what made us want to do what we want to do. I've been thinking about it, mate. You mentioned that if you went back in time and spoke to your past self, one of the things you talked to them about is being open to different social experiences, different types of people. Do you think that you, as a human being
Mm.
possess any fundamental skills, things that are unique to you that make you cut out for traveling in a way that other people might not be?
God, like a personality trait or
Yeah.
something in my character.
Or a physical characteristic.
A physical characteristic?
Yeah, like, oh, I've got size 10 feet, which is really common, so I can wear other people's flip-flops.
I don't know, really. I would say that, again, similarly to the previous question, ability to build relationships definitely comes in very handy, because the backpacking community and local communities wherever you are amazing.
Yeah.
So I struggle to imagine what it would be like if you are a really closed off, introvert, antisocial. Like, do those people go backpacking?
Some of them do.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I wish I had realised the power of sooner is smiling.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. I think I'm quite a smiley person.
You are. And I've seen the impact that has on your life.
Yeah. It really is quite incredible how many doors just smiling opens.
Completely.
And one thing I've been thinking of recently is how, we're building a brand. All right, guys.
Tripology.
We're building what you might call an empire. Who knows? We're right at the beginning. Come and join the adventure. But you often think about slogans, merchandise, what's the sort of message we're trying to send. I don't want to be too controversial here, but I would say you should talk to strangers. And I know that we all grew up and our parents would say you shouldn't talk to strangers because they're weirdos.
Definitely not in Manchester, Ram.
Yeah, especially if they're not giving you an ice cream.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think talking to strangers, smiling a lot, I think that's definitely, if we can go down the road of what's the one piece of advice you would give to a new traveller, just smile a lot, smile at everyone. Not everyone's going to smile back, but it is an amazing reception that you get more often than not. And if it results in eating with a family in that local area, or if it just means that the mate in the bed next door starts chatting to you and he's a really interesting guy.
A lot of good stuff happens from being open, being an open human being, right? Open-minded.
Yeah, totally. Just being sort of friendly, sociable, and I love that. I think you'd make many friends and have an amazing experience if you smile a lot.
Here's what I think, though. You mentioned like you can't imagine going traveling if you're an introverted person, right?
I think it'd be quite hard.
Right, interesting. Because I think when I started traveling, I was a quintessential extrovert.
Right.
I felt like I loved people. I loved talking to people. I loved, I just loved social gatherings of every kind. And one of the most exciting things for me was that I remember thinking this. Isn't it such a shame that once you leave university, you never get that university shared house experience again? And how cool it was that traveling, I got that every day in a hostel. And that was brilliant to me.
That's a good observation.
That was like an amazing thing. As I've got a little bit older and travelled more and more...
Still very young, though.
Thank you. I've become more introverted.
You do really believe that?
I think I've become more introverted as time's gone on.
Can I throw a bit of a curvy one at you?
Yes.
Do you think that maybe you're just making conscious decisions about how you behave in certain situations?
This is what I think. I think that what I thought was extroversion previously was actually discomfort being with my own thoughts and my own self.
Crikey,
I think
guys.
I was consciously and actively like searching for input, right? Like I was always either in a conversation with someone, the second the conversation ended, headphones in, podcasts on, input. And one thing that travel's like really taught me is that sometimes it's okay to have no battery in your headphones on an 8-hour bus ride. And it's okay to look out the window and think. And once you're comfortable being on an 8-hour bus ride with your own thoughts, then there's less of an imperative to go out and be social all the time or go and be the one at a hostel. So I still think social gatherings, that sort of thing, is and always will be one of the best parts of traveling. I love meeting people. I met you through traveling. I met everyone who's important to me in my life, bar 1 or 2 people in my family. I've met through traveling. It is the medium by which all of my friendship and experience come. But now it's no longer something that I'm compelled to do irrespective of my want. Now I'm more comfortable being on my own. So I have become more introverted as a result.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't fancy myself as that guy in the middle of the hostel who's, gathering everyone together and going, hey, we're playing a drinking game, or I'm going on a hike this morning. I know you've told stories on the podcast like that before, haven't you?
Sure.
I feel like I'm quite deliberate in how I spend my time in that regard. And
Yes.
I don't know if I am an extrovert or an introvert, to be honest. Is there some sort of test we can do?
Yeah,
Not live on air,
you're an ambivert, someone who takes
ambivert.
energy from both extrovert activities and introvert activities. I think we all know those kind of like bulldozing extroverts who like really like get everyone in agreement. Sometimes they're nice to be around because they bring people together. Sometimes they're absolutely insufferable. Like everyone, we're all playing beer pong tonight.
It's the cliche, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So
sorry, mate, I'm going to walk around the neighbourhood and do something I actually care about.
yeah, I think like from knowing you for a long time, you definitely take energy from alone time, but you are also one of the most successful, openly extroverted people I've ever met in terms of like people want to be around you and spend time with you in that regard as well. So I think that like all good travelers, you're probably quite adept at both. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe traveling has just balanced me out a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. I've got quite an interesting one as we're asking each other sort of questions. It might be quite funny for the listener. Obviously millions of things happen while you're traveling. Is there anything, as we're talking about extrovert, introvert kind of thing, is there anything that's happened in your decade of traveling around the world that has been so embarrassing you've just wanted the world to swallow you up?
Oh, an embarrassing incident.
Yeah.
Crikey.
The most embarrassing thing that's happened to you while traveling. Because
have you got one in mind for you while I think about mine?
I mean, I could probably reel off about 3.
Really?
If I'm honest.
Okay, go ahead. Reel off a couple.
I remember when I was in Koh Rong, which is an island off the south coast of Cambodia, if I'm not mistaken. And I was convinced to go skinny dipping with a group of lads. And they were friends, and I kind of joined their group. It was the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Lovely, picturesque beach, white sand, palm trees, all this kind of stuff. Quite busy. And we all got in. I ran in there, like no one's business. And then they all ran back out and grabbed my shorts, and I didn't see them again for the rest of the day. So that was...
You're exposed?
Yeah. Yeah, they made me walk all the way back to where we were staying with no clothes.
That's cruel.
Completely naked. It was quite embarrassing, yeah.
Yeah. But you are, a wonderful specimen and a gentleman, so not as embarrassing as it otherwise might have been.
Yeah, no, that was quite funny, that one. And then there was another time when I was in Russia. I was on the island of Olkhon, which is in the middle of Lake Baikal.
Yeah.
And I was staying with a local guy there who had invited some friends over, and they were having a bit of smoke up and getting some food out, some local food. And I don't know if I've told this on the podcast before, but it was quite embarrassing. There was what I thought was a block of cheese in the middle of the table.
Oh no!
And I was too shy to ask whether I could have some. So, like a coward, I waited until someone else turned up at the door.
Like an ambivert.
Yeah, I waited until someone else turned up at the door, and then they went to answer the door. So I was left with this block of cheese on my own. I basically like
sheepishly tried to surreptitiously take some.
Yeah, I basically like sliced off a decent chunk and bit into it before they could come back. Immediately knew that it absolutely was not cheese. It tasted like a candle. And I swallowed all of it. I'm sure you don't eat as much as I ate normally.
Right.
And then swallowed it quickly. When they came back, I just kind of said, oh, what's this thing in the middle of the table? And they told me that it was raw pig fat. And that it's basically, I think it's a Ukrainian dish that's really good for your brain.
Okay, and you're supposed to just have tiny quantity, like a little bit of pig fat keeps the neurons firing.
Yeah, I mean, I was questioning whether it's something that should even be eaten. It was really weird. It was so bland. It was like a bar of soap with no aroma or something.
Right, yeah.
It was horrible.
I like that. That's quite like, it's quite sweet, innit, that you were thinking about it. You sheepishly sort of wanted some, waited for an opportune moment. I tell you what, actually, my most embarrassing incident ever traveling, it was anything but sheepish, mate. Fans of the podcast know, love animals, work in animal rehab whenever I can on a volunteering basis.
Yeah.
When I first arrived in the Amazon, I was being shown round the gaff by a couple of people who were like, okay, here's where the capuchins are, here's where the spider monkeys. And I heard a screech from above.
Right.
Now I know this to be the unmistakable call of the Bolivian squirrel monkey.
Right.
It descended from the treetops, sat on my shoulder, and I mean, what can only be described as shagged my ear.
What?
In front of the new group of people that I would be then spending a month in the Amazon. It grabbed my nose and the back of my head and then thrust itself into my ear hole.
Oh my goodness.
For like 3 seconds. And then obviously I was like, freaked out, and then it dashed off back into the tree.
Oh my, what was, I mean, I don't really know what question to ask, to be honest.
It didn't do anything to completion. It was just a display of dominance by the Bolivian squirrel monkey.
Really? A display of dominance?
And I did feel dominated.
Yeah. And what happened after that? Did you see them again?
I was subservient to that monkey for the rest of my time in the Amazon.
Yeah,
They were out and about. There was a little troop of squirrel monkeys that would dash around, but you can't really live that experience down with the group because you're always going to be the new volunteer who got, let's say fucked by a squirrel monkey in the first 5 minutes of arriving.
Was there any part of you that thought, well, he could have fucked anyone in the ear, but he chose me?
Was I flattered?
You got nice ears.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I tried to play it off with the group, like, oh, guys, I know you think it's funny, but I've actually got an affinity with the animals.
Yeah, I know it looks like he was trying to dominate me, but we clearly picked me for a reason.
Exactly. I noticed that not all of you remain unviolated, and
I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back for more.
You see, you guys think that was just a horrible display of dominance by the monkey, but that monkey actually got the social care he needs and will thrive in the wild as a result.
Oh my goodness. Shit. Yeah. Swiftly moving on, I've just thought about another embarrassing one that does involve a jungle of sorts.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of happy water as like an alcohol sort of distilled spirit that they use in these like faraway tribes and communities up in the mountains?
Right. Yeah. It's like just a very ethanol-y, alcohol-y drink.
High proof, tastes awful. And I remember there was a time when I was trekking through the northern jungles of Vietnam, close to the Chinese border, had some happy water, had some more happy water after being almost force-fed by the lady I was staying with.
Yeah.
And I didn't make it past 9 o'clock. I was vomiting everywhere.
No way.
Yeah, even before dinner. It was so embarrassing. I saw a picture the other day.
Were they surprised at the effect it had on you?
No, they were caring, but I didn't move much. I was paralytic. And I wasn't on my own in their house either. There was a Canadian guy that I was with and 2 girls from Southampton in the UK who could all hold their happy water far better than I could. But
I wonder if there's like something in it that didn't agree with you or something.
Anyone that's listening to this podcast that knows me personally knows full well that me vomiting off alcohol is a regular occurrence.
Yeah, you do vomit more than other people. There.
So the problem is, write us an email, tripologypodcast@gmail.com if you resonate with this at all. But I don't get drunk because I've already been sick. I go basically from drinking to tipsy to vomiting. I'm not the guy at the end.
True.
I've
witnessed that.
I'm not the guy at the end of the night who, at 4 a.m. is still sloshing a beer back and going, "Oh, you're my best mate," all right, because I'm already in bed 3 hours before after vomiting my dinner up.
Serves you well, I think, because I've seen you get up very early after a night of heavy drinking, and I've been impressed.
Really?
Yeah, I think maybe you do like tactical vomiting sessions that leave you better off because your liver's not processing the alcohol that a person that didn't vomit has processed.
Yeah, it was very much unhappy water. It didn't stop me drinking the next night, if that's the next question on your lips.
It was about to be the next question on my lips. But I think that's good though, man. I think we've got to know each other a little bit better. I think that, if there's one takeaway from this episode, I think it's that actually travel is not prescriptivist in any sense. I think that whether you're an extrovert and introvert, the most important thing is that you just do it and try it. Like, there's nothing stopping you from going away for any period of time with the mindset of, let me just see whether I like it or not. I see all the time on social media when I'm swiping on a dating app or when I'm scrolling a feed on Instagram or all those things, you see people go, "Oh, I love travel." And people mean a lot of different things by that.
Yeah.
And I think
they do, don't they?
Yeah.
They do. Do you feel like a little bit of a gatekeeper sometimes?
I do, but I'm trying to get rid of that mindset from my head because it's really easy to be like, "Oh, but we're the proper travelers. We've been doing it for so long." But honestly, who's to say that someone who has space in their life for a month of a journey, they're doing it. They're doing it. As long as they travel like in a responsible, sustainable, effective way, they're a tripologist to me.
Yeah, that fits into their life. I mean, there was a couple of boys I was chatting to recently in the hostel we're staying in, and they said because of work and study commitments, they can't get away for long stints. But what they do is come up to these mountains once a month and they explore the whole place by foot. They know the place like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
And, you know, that works for them. So who's to say because they're not backpacking around Thailand or going to Colombia to do a workaway or whatever that they're any different from we are? They're just doing the best they can with something they're passionate about.
And for me and you, travel being a priority has meant that we've done like little else but travel, and everything else we do is through the medium of travel, right?
Yeah,
so we do other stuff,
Yeah.
but it all comes under the banner of priority is seeing as much of the world as we can, or like going to exotic places.
I think we've got a pretty good podcast as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly, right? So, but for other people, travel being a priority means that they work for 8 months and manage to get a couple of months away a year. You know, travel being a priority looks like different things for different people, and they're all welcome here on Tripology Podcast.
I know you do meet people that I kind of wish that at the age of 18, say, someone had put their arm around me, maybe like someone like us, but I guess the same sort of age as we are now with experience, and said, you do realise you can do like 6 months on, 6 months off.
Yeah.
Be a ski bum and then maybe do a scuba diving thing. And this is like an alternative way of life, I feel, that we're not really told about when we're growing up or when we're at school. And if we can influence people in that way and support them, I would absolutely love to be a part of that. It'd be so amazing.
Well, that's it. If you're listening to this show and you're thinking, I do want to make travel a priority, I want to make travel more of a priority, I want to just start thinking about traveling in a different way, let this be a sign to you. Email us, tripologypodcast@gmail.com. We literally spend time reading the emails word by word and then typing out a lovely response to each and every one of them. We want to talk to you guys. We want to build a community. We're also on Instagram @tripologypodcast. And if you think, God, this show, Adam and Alan, I want to hear a lot more of them, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Tripology Podcast, where we do a show after the show, which we're about to do now. It gets all crazy. Will I take my poncho off? It remains to be seen, but regardless of that, we'll see you next week.
We'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.